Hello. I'm Justin D. Jenkins, managing editor of The Quintessential Gentleman, and today I'm here with MTV news correspondent and the host of True Life Crime, Dometi Pongo. Brother, how are you?
Man, it's good to see you, brother. How you doing?
Good to see you, man. You're a busy guy. You have the new show coming out, the exhibit Finding the Next Great Artist. Before we get into that, one thing I've admired about your career is you've been very intentional about the stories that you tell and that you share. At what point during, you growing through your journey that you knew that this was your purpose?
Mm. I think it became clear that this was my purpose when it's a couple iterations. You have this thing where you think you found your purpose and then you encounter challenges and obstacles that kind of try to,
Yeah.
inspire doubt within you. And then you always come back to that core moment. But the
Yeah.
moment that I realized I always had a core to come back to was when I was debating whether or not to take on the role of True Life Crime. I remember a friend of mine called me and said, Dometi, MTV's casting for True Life Crime. Would you like to be a part, etc.? And I remember praying and I opened the Bible and it opened right to Proverbs 31, 8 and 9. And that was literally the scripture that my Bible opened to. And it
Wow.
said, plead the cause of the poor and needy, speak for those who can't speak for themselves. I'm paraphrasing.
Wow.
And I was like, okay, maybe I am supposed to do this. So anytime I encounter those moments of doubt, that's probably where I go back to. So that year, that was 2018 when
Yeah.
2018, 2017 when that happened for me.
Wow. And it's great. And it shows that what you're doing and living your purpose and all the great things that's coming your way and how true you are to that. Now, your work lives at the intersection of pop culture and social justice. Can you talk to me how both kind of can go hand in hand to help kind of evolve and for change and equality?
Oh, absolutely. Pop culture it's like this symbiotic relationship with what's happening in society and pop culture informing what should happen in society. And sometimes it's the tail wagging the dog, other times it's pop culture giving, society those cues.
Yeah.
And everything, when you're black or when you're a person of color, or if you're from a marginalized identity, almost everything you do is an act of politics, is a radical act.
Mhm.
Just existing in certain spaces that weren't outlined for you to exist at all becomes an act of protest, whether you wanted to or not. It's up to you. What do you do with that? And so I think what I try to do is exploit those situations where artists and performers and entertainers have chosen to take up that mantle and saying, yes, this is my platform and this is how I'm going to use it to spread positivity, to propel our people forward, whether that's just by being their unapologetic selves, like a Lizzo, who
Yeah.
is just opening doors for people of varying body types, or whether it's someone who's more deliberate, like say a Killer Mike or somebody who really has taken up that mantle and expanded it. So I wanted to use the show Need to Know, which we host on MTV News, to highlight those folks and in essence, by giving light to what they're doing, hopefully stepping into my own shoes within that space as well.
Yeah, definitely. Now, do you ever feel a burden or a struggle to always constantly kind of get it right since you are so, open and vulnerable in that way?
The only time I felt the pressure to get it right and where it felt the stakes were really high, I guess, were two times in my career. Once when Laquan McDonald was shot 16 times by a police officer named Jason Van Dyke, and there were a lot of protests happening. And at the time, uh, there was this fraught relationship, not just with communities and law enforcement, but
Yeah.
also with media information coming out. And then just this idea that anytime somebody got killed from the cops, we said they did nothing, they had nothing to do with it. So it was like this whole thing of, well, he was holding a knife, and I don't know if you know the case, but it was a boy
Yeah.
who, yeah. And so that time, I felt this imperative to, while at the same time I'm representing my people, I'm speaking for my people, speaking on issues that matter to us, making sure that my credibility isn't called into question because it mattered so much.
Yeah.
Because if my credibility is called into question, then that might have a domino effect on the people who look like me, who are also reporters, coming beside me and coming before me. So that time, and during 2020, we
Mm.
first began reporting from home, and George Floyd was happening, Breonna Taylor was happening, COVID information was happening, and I really wanted to make sure that the COVID information I was putting out there was accurate, that the information we're talking about with Black Lives Matter, with
Yeah.
civil rights and human rights of Black folks was accurate. So those were two really intense situations where I felt like it really mattered. And that's why I was so proud of some of the projects that I've been able to take on here, because it fused all of the worlds that I'm most passionate about.
Yeah.
And hopefully we get it right, man. We
Yeah.
don't always get it right, but think that's what it takes to be a good journalist is when new information comes out, being willing to say, I've learned more, so I'm going to share more, you know?
Right. And now you talk about these intense situations that you report on. And one thing that we're really big on at the Quintessential Gentleman is Black men and our mental health. How have you been able to kind of prioritize your mental health? Because I mean, you get into these stories and I know it takes a toll. So what have you kind of done to make sure that your mental health is always in check, that you can always show up for yourself, even if you can't, be the leader all the time in these stories?
Man, you would think as often as I've had these conversations, I would have a more concrete answer, but I'm be honest with you, bro. I don't. I think the biggest thing that I've learned about myself is to call the thing what it is when I have a feeling. I
Mm.
think as men, we find power in being able to compartmentalize and say, no, nothing's wrong. I'm pushing through. I'm pushing
Yeah.
through. And I remember when I had I had a partner reveal to me that I wasn't showing up in the way I normally show up. Like, you're distant, you're kind of aloof. And this is when I was shooting True Life Crime. And I said, oh, I need to sit down and say, maybe it is impacting me to talk to people who've experienced these
Yeah.
really traumatic losses on a day-to-day basis. So that was my first thing, just saying to myself, you're sad. Like you don't feel well. So that was
Acknowledging
the
it,
first thing. It's just acknowledging. That was the first thing. It's so simple. But I think for a lot of men, just acknowledging what we feel and not just shoving it down, that was the first thing. And then the second thing was giving myself freedom to do nothing. I'm taught to hustle, 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 especially being a son of immigrants. Everything is about work ethic. If something's not working, it's because you are not working hard enough.
Yeah.
And it's like, nah, it's giving myself that time to watch to watch some trashy TV.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? To read a book that isn't about Black liberation or
Yeah.
politics or something. So, just finding those things that bring me joy and happiness, and then,
Yeah.
dealing with the feelings and then getting back to it.
Yeah. Another thing I know that brings you joy and happiness is hip hop. And what a lot of people don't know is you actually wanted to be a
Oh yeah.
rapper, and you actually wrote your first verse at 6 years old. When did you realize you can also be a storyteller through journalism and keep your same love for hip hop?
Oh man, I should have mentioned hip hop as my stress reliever.
There you
That's
go.
me too. Music.
Yeah.
Man, that moment came. All right, when I realized I had to work in the arts. So all through, I was the kid in high school where people were beating on the lockers, making beats, beating on the lunch
Yeah.
table. I was the one dominating the cipher. That was my identity.
All right.
And some time goes past. I graduate college. I worked in corporate America for a year, hated it, and I quit and moved back in with my parents. And I was trying to figure out what it was that I was supposed to do next. And I interned at a radio station. I was trying to figure out if music was the thing for me. And I started to lose my passion for making music for commercial success. I always had the passion because it made me happy, let me express myself. And I saw moderate success for my music, but I didn't want to do the things that it would take to sustain a music career in the climate that music was in at that time. And the moment I realized that there was this intersection between, music and journalism was I interned at a radio station and then eventually went to this broadcasting school and auditioned to be an on-air personality. And the structure for putting together a story very much mirrored the structure of putting together a verse.
Wow.
And that moment was when I realized, wait a minute, God just put me in this space to give me these transferable skills, articulation, enunciation, lack of performance anxiety, getting up in front of a crowd, all of these things I learned from hip hop.
Yeah.
And so when I started to feel that same fire from storytelling, even though it didn't rhyme, I felt fulfilled in the same way I did when I wrote verses. I said, okay, all right, I can do this. I can do this thing. And that was probably 2013, I believe.
Wow, that's awesome. And we know hip hop is celebrating its 50th anniversary.
Yes.
So who was one of your favorite hip hop artists growing up?
Black Thought.
Okay.
Black Thought from the Roots. I don't think he gets enough credit for being one of the top lyricists ever. And my sister was a hip hop head. She listened to the Roots, so I grew up to the Roots. Obviously Jay-Z. Nipsey Hussle, he speaks in motivational quotes. Like, he's straightforward. He's got the same straightforward cadence as Tupac, where it's about the poeticism and not necessarily the lyricism. So Tupac, Nipsey. Who else was I listening to the other day, man? I'm liking Soul God Cooks right now.
Okay.
Who is out of the Griselda camp. A couple of guys, man, but Jay-Z and Black Thought, as far as like the music that I revisit the most,
Yeah.
Jay-Z, Black Thought, and Nipsey. Those are probably my personal top
Yeah.
three.
That's dope. That's dope. Now talking about pop culture and culture, you're entering into the art world now with the new show, The Exhibit, Finding the Next Great Artist, which will air on MTV and the Smithsonian Channel. Talk to me how you became a part of that project and the process there.
Man, you know what? I wish the story was sexier, but it's not, man. What ended up happening? So I got a call from the story. The show had been in pre-production for some time before I'd known about it. And I ended up getting a call from the team at Paramount, and they said, "Yo, can you pop out to Baltimore in 2 days for a couple weeks to host this exciting competition series?" And I'm like, "I got stuff to do for the next couple of weeks." And they said, "Nah, we need you out there tomorrow,"
Yeah.
And I was like, "I bet." And I jumped knee deep in it. And what was so kismet about it is I don't think they even knew that I'm an art collector. I only mostly collect. This is my brother Instrumental
Right.
made this. I think Max Sensing might be the artist. Don't quote me on
Okay.
that. I apologize to the artist if that's not him. That's the brother Fred Hampton. I collect art from Africa
Yeah.
every time I go. If my house was clean, I'll show you more of it. But they didn't even know that just as a consumer, art galleries was what I visited frequently. I used to host an open mic in Chicago called the Artist Lounge,
Wow.
but we would host poetry sets at different cultural centers and art galleries throughout the city.
Yeah.
And so without having to prepare, I had a day to get to Baltimore. We shot at the Micah, and I just took all of these interests that were buried deep down in me and applied it to what I was doing and hosting the show with these 7 artists
Yeah.
competing for an exhibit at the Herschel.
So it's interesting. You said the story isn't sexy, but I think that is a really sexy story that, you had all this already, this knowledge with it. And then you had a day to come out there and host and show why you're such a professional that you are, that you was able to even do that.
Thank you.
But one of the things is, we know these high stake competition shows are all over. What makes a good host?
Ooh, man, for these shows, it's genuine interest. I think you can tell when a host just shows up
Yeah.
and is like, "Okay, so and so's eliminated." It's like,
Yeah.
I think it's genuine interest, and I think it's interest in the stories of the artists and their journeys to where they are. So this show so unique because all of the artists are in different stages of their career.
Okay.
Some of them are professionally taught and have been learning since they were youth and end up going to prestigious places to learn. Others have shown at museums. And then you got self-taught painters that just picked up a paintbrush and just went for it.
Yeah.
And you got different mediums, multimedia, all of these different things. And I think the best hosts engage with the personal stories of these people, as one-to-one human beings.
Yeah.
And we had a really powerful moment. I won't give it away, but with one of the artists who, for one of the challenges, had to confront a particularly painful loss that they went through personally. And I had a moment with that person, and a piece of that moment, I believe, made its way into the art. And that went on to be one of the dopest episodes personally to me, and in my opinion, one of the dopest pieces of the show. And again, it goes back to the host just being in touch with the personal journeys of each of those contestants.
It's interesting that you brought up, the personal journey and you being there. Because when a host, I guess this is like an interview for them, right? And it's like everyone's already nervous for like simple interviews, but they want to win $100,000. And one of the things I noticed about your career is your empathy that you do have and that you kind of exhibit through your interviews and the projects that you take on. Can you speak about how empathy has gotten you to this point in your career?
First, I appreciate you. I appreciate you saying that, because empathy is not something that is easily visible, and it's not something that's seen or acknowledged or a compliment that I hear that you would hear often. So to have that shine through in the work is humbling to hear. So thank you for saying that.
Definitely.
I forgot the question. I'm still just processing you saying that. What'd you say?
No, I get it. I'm saying because you notice the empathy that you do display. Can you talk about why it was important for you to constantly, I guess, show it and how it led you and kind of pushed you in your journey in your career at this point?
Yeah. There was a decision I made a long time ago when I first got into journalism. I thought that I had to be this prim and proper, suit and tie, buttoned up. The only route I saw was to go from reporter in a small town and work your way back up to the big markets, and then hopefully you get to sit at an anchor desk and you speak like this and you talk with an American unidentifiable accent. And I decided one day that if I was going to succeed or fail, I wanted to succeed or fail as myself.
Hmm.
You know, I didn't want to stop, because one thing that halted hip hop a little bit for me was I didn't promote my music as fervently as I could have, because I still was working in corporate America and I still was living a dual lifestyle. So if I say I'm going to go all in, I need to bring all of Dometi Pongo to these jobs and to these shows. And for me, that meant empathy. And that's something I didn't know about myself until I got on camera, where I'm given a list of questions and it's like, okay, this isn't going to resonate with this person. Let's go off book and let me just connect. I think that imperative to bring 100% of myself, win or lose, to every challenge was the thing that inspired me to be more empathetic in my work, because that's who I am in my personal life.
And like you said, it's going to shine this season on the exhibit. Now, what is one thing you've learned from these artists about passion, about craftsmanship, and kind of about following your dreams hosting the show?
Man, I learned how much bravery it takes to succeed or fail in public, bro.
Yeah.
I think so many people don't step out or reach their dreams because they're scared for the public to see them fail. You know, you guys started Quintessential Gentleman. It didn't always have as many followers as you had. Didn't always have the prestigious cover stories and guests that you had. People had to see you publicly go through those growing pains.
Yeah.
And that's the bravery. So for these artists to get on a show, have us watch them try to make a thing, it F up completely. We had a challenge where a thing literally blew up and he didn't know if he was going to finish in time. And he had to deal with that anxiety and embarrassment of what it would look like to not succeed on that platform. And then to be brave enough to have critics come and pick your work apart. And this is what you put your heart into. So what I learned from them is bravery in the creative process and how much bravery it takes. And to just be fearless when you're creating something that you believe in.
Yeah, definitely, definitely. And I guess my final question is, so like, what's next? I know you got this show, you're promoting it, and you're doing the docu-series, you have everything going on. What's next from you?
Man, I'm super proud of the space I'm in at Paramount now, where I'm getting the chance to, with my new overall deal, to work across the network. So
Yes.
what's next is more projects with Smithsonian, more with MTV, hopefully at the other properties. Really focused on the exhibit right now, but every week we drop an episode of Need to Know on our social platforms on MTV News. So if you're interested in what we're talking about, this intersection of pop culture and social justice, that's where that content lives, man. And hopefully I have more projects for you coming up later this year, where I get to, you know, expand my talents across Paramount. So I'm looking forward to that.
Definitely, definitely. And fans, we're looking towards that as well. Dometi Pongo, you have the exhibit Finding Next Great Artist premiering this Friday, March 3rd, and also premiering on March 7th on the Smithsonian Channel. Got that right?
You got that right. Only thing, my name's pronounced Dometi, actually.
Dometi.
Yeah, yes. It means
Dometi,
the
okay.
pillar or backbone of the family. But everything else you got correct. It is coming on Friday, March 3rd, 9 p.m., right after Drag Race.
There we
So
go.
if you're a fan of Drag Race, stay tuned, keep watching. Please, please, please support this show. We have enough TV that doesn't show us in the best light. And by us, I mean creatives and everyone in this space. This show shows us in the proper context, and let's support it. Let's champion it. Let's talk about it. Let's hashtag the exhibit, all that good stuff.
Awesome, awesome. Dometi Pongo, thank you so much, brother.